bearish sentiment is fully attributed to the 4-year cycle. Some argue it's over, and some argue that it's right on schedule.
October was the 4-year cycle top. Bitcoin is going to drop. I don't think you'll have a massive rotation into altcoins that leads to an alt season. What if the 4-year cycle is wrong, right? What if this time is different and you're on the wrong side? Find me the bull case.
Crypto's future is a little uncertain right now, and listening to everybody else's opinions doesn't make it any easier. But when listening to mainstream media, you can only help but wonder who's right, crypto OGs or Wall Street.
What's really interesting is we're a big inflection point right now for digital assets, Bitcoin especially. If you look at the regulatory clarity that's come into the system over the past year, it's a whole new ballgame. Head of the SEC said a couple weeks ago that capital markets are all moving on chain. Jamie Dimon has reversed course. They're now building on blockchain. So all of this is massively positive for Bitcoin, which looks like it's put in a higher base than it did in the spring of 25. The technicals are really starting to line up and it looks like it's ready to go again.
Welcome back to the video. I hope you guys are doing well. I have two charts that I must show you today. These are the most important charts that we need to be looking at when we're talking about the future of crypto and how we need to be thinking about the future of the market. There has been a lot of back and forth between the bears and the bulls. There's been a lot of misinformation. There's been a lot of information to support the bull case and the bear case, and I'm going to break down everything in this video, and I'm going to take you and walk you through step by step exactly how you should be thinking about crypto in 2026. The rules have changed, the game has changed, and I'm going to explain and show you exactly how this all happened. So in order for us to understand what's going on currently in the market, we also have to go back a few cycles, okay? Now, when you're looking at the crypto chart back in 2017, I can almost assume most of us were here. I wasn't even here around this time, but I know most of my viewers probably weren't as well. Back in 2017, we peaked in the end of 2017 in December, and the market capitalization at the peak of this market was $852 billion. And I'm going to get into why this is all important, and I'm going to get into why everything else is important here. Now, my first point that I want to make, comparatively to the 2021 cycle top, we can see that the crypto market actually had a 3.75x from 852 billion to around $3 trillion, okay? When we compare 2021 to the current market cycle, we can see here that we've only went up around, let's call it 45%, whatever that percentage gain is. It hasn't been that much of a gain comparatively to the last cycle. So going from a 3.75x across the entire crypto market cycle to literally not even having a 2x is red flag for me, number one. And it's going to sound so stupid and be like, what are you talking about, Trey? That's just such an insignificant thing, but you got to give me a moment to you got to let me cook, okay? You got to let me chef it up for a second here, okay? It's all going to make sense. Now that we have that out the way, there's a few other things I also want to point out and why I'm starting to feel like a correction could most definitely happen further from this point on, but why I feel like we're not going to know until a certain date and period in time, which for me, if we were looking at the 2021 cycle, is 143 days total. So from the peak of the last market cycle, stay with me, to the first major bottom that we had, and then the bull trap that we had, you can look over on the chart and we look like we're in almost a similar zone. As you can see here, we had a nice sharp movement down, and we're also having a nice sharp movement down to around the $80,000 level, which we already kind of recovered from. So we're kind of in this zone right here. That's where I feel like most people think we are right now. From the peak of the last cycle to where we were before we completely fell off a cliff, it was roughly 143 days. Let's call it 140 days, whatever the case may be. We're currently tracking around 94 days from the peak to where we are currently at now, meaning we have roughly around 50 days left, right? Roughly around 50 days left before we could potentially see a move either strongly to the upside or the downside. Now, one thing I have to make very clear is that previous price history and movement doesn't dictate future price history and movement, right? These things are not correlated. I mean, they rhyme from time to time, but we have to take them with a grain of salt, and we have to add some confluence to that as well. Now, quickly before I move on, I also want to point out something to you that I thought was pretty interesting as well. When we go back to the 2017 cycle, first off, I want to just point out that the move, if I can just get this out the way here. So before I actually break it down, I'm just going to open up the date range one as well. And I'm just going to do a rough graph here. Days. It took around 51 days. Okay, so a very sharp movement down before we trickled into a bear market. We obviously had a little bit of a dead cat bounce here, and then we obviously rolled over into a prolonged bear market. There's a lot of things and a lot of reasons why I don't feel like that's going to happen. A lot of them are macro related. Most of them are macro related and have to do with global liquidity. The Federal Reserve is adding a bunch of liquidity and injecting it into the repo markets, into the banks, and they're buying back a lot of treasuries at this current moment in time. We also ended quantitative tightening last year, not to mention the Treasury General account, which is like the Federal Reserve's checkings account. You can think of it almost like a savings account, was being filled up all throughout 2025, and now they're ready to spend it, pretty much, generally speaking. So all of this is happening. Interest rates are coming down, and we're also getting a new Fed chair that's going to be bullish for the market. So there's a couple reasons why I feel like we're not going into the bear market. Now, when looking back at the charts, right, this move was a 70% move downward, massive for Bitcoin price. If we skirt on over here to the 2021 cycle, as you can see, we can also detail out that this was a pretty strong move. It was a 53% move down to that first bottom. If you want to move that up just a smidge, 52%, okay? If we move over to the market currently that we're dealing with, the last move is only around 36%. Now, this can also be attributed to the fact that the market cap has grown, but it hasn't grown enough, as we talked about earlier, right, from 3 trillion to 4.3 trillion to justify a 36% move being the bottom. If I am to think that we are in a bear market, I need to see a sub $60,000 price level, which is also why I have this massive region of volume built out on the charts as well, from $60,000 at the base to around $75,000. Now remember, we do not detail out specific price points on the chart. We talk about ranges and we talk about areas, because these are massive areas of volume where bulls and bears are fighting and jockeying for a position. So price could fall anywhere in between this range, but it's very unlikely that it would fall through, because you also have the last cycle backing up as support here, where there has been a lot of previous price history. So considering that this isn't technically the bottom, or potentially isn't the bottom, right? We still might have a little bit more to fall, but it also hasn't fallen that much to where I'm worried about the cycle being over yet. Now, understanding that the Fed and the government has to roll over a lot of that debt, right? Obviously, the Federal Reserve is a private entity, but they work hand in hand, right? It's like a hand in a glove. They pretty much work side by side. So understanding that they also have to pay back a bunch of the debt this year, they're going to have to print money in various different ways to do so, which is why I think liquidity, global M2 supply is going to spike, which is obviously global liquidity, right? Now, a few things that also struck my nerve and struck my attention as well when looking at the chart is that you have the S&P 500 that's worth over $58 trillion, and it went up 16% in 2025. Gold went up from 18.9 trillion at the beginning of 2025 to 30 trillion in market cap size by the end of 2025. You also have silver that started off 2025 at $1.75 trillion, and now it's sitting at above $4.7 trillion, which is larger than the entire crypto market capitalization at this moment in time. This to me is insanely bullish for crypto, because we are literally at this point the only asset class that hasn't had a real move last year. For the first time ever in the post-halving year for Bitcoin, we actually had a negative year. We printed negative 6% in growth for Bitcoin's price, I believe. So as every other market is pumping and growing because of the financial conditions, crypto is the only asset class, I think, other than real estate, that is lagging behind. Now, there's something else I have to point on this chart before we move on to the other important things we have to talk about in this video. So if you found any value so far up to this point, leave a like on the video. We're going to keep it going for you, okay? Now, something else that caught my attention and why I'm kind of leaning towards the bear market not being in yet is something I've used before in the past if you watched any of my videos, which is the 200-week, the 100-week, and the 50-week moving averages before, which are these lines here, and also the 50-day moving averages, 20-day moving averages, and 100-day moving average. Now, currently we are finding a lot of support here. If I just zoom in on the 100-week, we're finding a ton of support. We bounced right off of this line. Now, if we shift over on the chart here and we go back to the previous cycle, something interesting happened in 2021 where we actually broke and fell right through this area of support at the 100-week. And even when we came down to the 200-week, we actually fell right through it. Now, if we even go farther back, I'm talking all the way back to 2017. Let me just get this stuff up off the screen so you can see what I'm talking about here. If we zoom on in and we look at what happened last time we came to this level, took us a little bit longer to get down to this level, well, we also just ripped right through it. So the both previous bear markets that we had, we ripped right through the 100-week moving average and fell directly to or below the 200-week moving average. But as of right now, we are still holding this area as support, which is another big reason why I haven't thrown in the red towel yet. Now, if we were to get down to the 200-week, we actually fall down below that $60,000 level, which I don't think is likely, only because we have previous price history in this particular cycle acting as support, this zone here from 60,000 to 75,000, but we also have the previous area, the previous market cycle, holding it up as support as well. So this would be a massive area of volume for us to fall through, which would signal to me that prices would end up probably going much, much lower, and falling below the 200-week would not be a far shot if that were to happen. Now, interesting enough, right? This is another chart that I wanted to show you today that is an extremely important chart for me to show you because it has to deal with the ISM. Now, I actually put a little more sauce on it to it today just to give you an idea of what you should be looking for. Let me just make sure this thing is spread out correctly so that you can see what I'm talking about here. Move this over here. Okay, so when looking at the chart, what are some of the key details that we're looking at? Number one, the ISM peaked above the 64-point mark in the top of the last bull cycle in 2021. And it actually was a signal for when we should have got out of the market or when we should be peaking in the market. Now, the ISM is more so used for risk assets, things other than Bitcoin, because these are the moments and times up here, right, where our crypto, our favorite altcoins are going absolutely bananas. Now, something extremely interesting before I dig too deep into the business cycle, I just want to show you something. Do you see these two blips right here? This is this current cycle, right? Remember, this is the last cycle peak here. We haven't even crossed over the 50-point mark yet. And I want to show you what the business cycle, what these different points and periods represent on the actual business cycle chart. Now, if I were to enlarge this here, we have 4 different phases, right? We have the expansion phase, we have the peak, we have contraction, and we have recovery. And the business cycle is usually every 3 to 5 years, but recently has been 4 years, right? Because there's 4 years in between 2017 and 2021, 4 years in between 2013 and 2017. And then before that, it was roughly like a 3.5-year mark, right? Before we got a peak up here between the 2008 financial crisis and this dated to around 2011, February 2011, so around 3.5 years or so. Now, looking at the business cycle and where we are currently at, let me move this over here. You can see, no, I want this over the chart. Thank you very much. Now you can see that the peak obviously represents the peak of the market cycle. If you move on over here to the 2013, 2017 cycles, you can see that we bottom when we cross below the 50-point mark, which is the neutral mark on the ISM. We actually touched down to 48 and we touched down to 47 on the ISM. And this is usually when we're in a bear market or price is really, really low. And that coincides with the trough down here that is in the contraction phase. That's why I have the red going on here. Now, you can also see this on the financial crisis and the COVID crash as well. We dipped down to 41 and we dipped down to 34 during the 2008 financial crisis. And this was arguably, not even arguably, it was the best time to buy. And the ISM details all of that out perfectly every single time. I'll be honest with you, if you don't know much about investing or crypto in general, if you had just watched this chart and invest a ton of money every 3 to 5 years when we hit these points on the ISM, you'd be a very rich person in the next couple decades. And I mean that especially when we're talking about crypto. In terms of this moment in time, the reason why I don't feel like the cycle is over yet and why we're still heading into the 5th year of this current business cycle is because we haven't even crossed the 50 point. The 2 times that we blipped above the 50 point mark, I want to actually make a point here. If we look at the date range, this was January 2025, and if on the 31st of the year, right? I can almost guarantee you if we go back to January 2025, we were peaking, right? In intra-cycle, we were peaking on the Bitcoin price chart. Interesting, right? Okay, again, if we go to this other little blip here, you can see in 2024, March on the 31st, if we go back to the Bitcoin price chart, let's try and find March in 2024. You can see here that we're also had that first peak in the cycle. So what does that tell me? If altcoins are following Bitcoin's price and Bitcoin is peaking on the ISM when we cross the 50 point mark, that would signal to me that whenever we cross the 50 point mark is usually when we get a spike in Bitcoin's price and obviously altcoins as well. Altcoins were doing very well in these 2 separate time periods, especially in March of 2024, right? So just imagine, everyone thinks altcoin season is dead and altcoins are done, or they're never going to pump and blah, 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 blah. But we haven't even crossed the 50 point mark, right? Or even got close to the 55 point mark on the ISM yet. So how could you think that this market cycle is over? And if I were to draw a straight line around the 55 point mark, and mind you, this chart goes all the way back to 1948 when they started using the ISM, the PMI. You can see here, if I put a line out, I'm just gonna get a horizontal line over here on the 55 point mark. Pretty much every time we've crossed over the 55 point mark, as you can see throughout history, we've had a peak shortly after or around the 55 point mark. So what that tells me is that once we get close to the 55 point mark, we're going to sell off at least a 20% of our overall portfolio just to secure profits. Then we're going to hold the other 80% up to around, let's just say 57, 58, depending on other macro factors. That's why you subscribe to the channel, so that when these times come, you are notified, you're not left holding the bag like most of us were in 2021. And once we get up to the 60 point mark, for me, I don't care. I'm not looking to see us hit 65 or 64 or anything like that. I'm out the market. I'm out the market completely, and I'm taking my profits because I also bought down here, right? And I've been buying the entire time. I've been buying all the way down through this entire period because I knew and I saw on the ISM that we were not cross the 50 point mark, and we still haven't yet. We're still waiting for our peak. This is a 5-year business cycle. This is not a 3-year or a 4-year. And this is another massive reason why I think we have a lot of room left to run. Now, interesting enough, if you were wondering, this wouldn't be a Trayvon Stevenson video if I didn't give you some type of altcoin alpha to go with it. Now, this is a project that we actually talked about, made an entire video on, which I'm going to leave up on the right-hand corner of your screen. So click that video or open up a new tab for that video so you can watch that after this video. And I'll also leave it in the description of this video. But we talked about Canton Network. Now, what is Canton Network? Simply put, Canton Network is a blockchain, and it's used by a lot of institutional investors. They already have trillions of dollars flowing daily on the chain, and this thing was actually created in 2020, but is only being publicized to the masses and retail over the past couple of months. Now, this is something by Cryptos R Us, a massive crypto influencer, and he's talking about JP Morgan just picked its next blockchain rails, which we already knew. I bring you this alpha far before anyone else does, right? That's the point of my channel. That's what I try to do for you. Banks choosing public rails over legacy systems, 24/7 settlement instead of batch banking in hours, and regulated digital cash across change. When the world's biggest institutions treat blockchain as a core settlement layer, it stops being fringe and starts being foundational. Powerful words, and I completely agree. This is why we made a video on Canton Network. Different banks like the Bank of China, they have Fidelity on there. They have the Bank of America on there. They have, I believe, now JP Morgan. I believe Morgan Stanley I also saw on there. If you go and watch the video, I go through all of the different financial institutions that are already using Canton Network and have been using Canton Network for a long time. Now, something that I'm completely okay with, and this is just me talking to you friend to friend at this point, right? You're always wrong until you're not, and you're always wrong when you're this early. These are two things that I've found. I'm okay being wrong for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case may be, because I know if I stack my chips now, I'm going to be able to reap the benefits of it later, right? For example, when Bitcoin first came out, everyone was talking, smart money was talking about how Bitcoin is used for scammers and drug dealers and nothing but criminals on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? Sending Bitcoin back and forth. And now all of that smart money is buying Bitcoin, right? But if you had waited for them, which is smart money, to tell you to go and buy Bitcoin, it already would have been too late. The same thing is true for a lot of these altcoins as well. We're so early in the grand scheme of things. Even if some of these altcoins are sitting at a few $billion, like a couple $100 million, what is that when we're talking about trillions of dollars? When crypto's expected to balloon to over $100 trillion at some point in the future. So for you to get some more information about Canton Network, click the right side of the screen. Click it right now, and I'll explain a little bit more about what Canton Network is, what it does, and why you should be investing in it. But without further ado, I love you guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.